Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
Welcome in, Hokies, to this episode of the Tech Sideline Podcast. Today we have in studio a very special guest, former Virginia Tech defensive tackle, former Virginia Tech defensive line coach, and yes, former Virginia Tech head coach for 3 games, the man, the myth, the cigar-smoking legend, after beating UVA in Charlottesville, J.C. Price. We'll talk to J.C. about the past, present, and the future on this, episode 476 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, which starts right now. I'm Tech Sideline founder Will Stewart. Welcome into our Tech Solutions studio in Blacksburg. Tech Solutions is also the sponsor of today's episode, and we thank Matt Talent and all the great people at Tech Solutions for supporting what we do here at Tech Sideline. On set today to chat with J.C. Price, we've got senior staff writer Andy Bitter. Producing today's episode is our director of media, Nick Brown. And without further ado, let's welcome in today's guest, J.C. Price. How you doing, J.C.?
Man, doing great. Glad to be here.
It's always good to be upright, isn't it?
Exactly. Better than the alternative.
Now, one of the things that drives me crazy about, I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast from time to time. One of the things that drives me crazy about it is he doesn't talk about the people he's interviewing. He just launches right in, and you're like, well, why should I care about this person? So we have a lot of young people that watch this podcast, so we're going to fill the youngins in on who you are. So here's my bullet point list. Virginia Tech defensive tackle from 1991 to 1995. Third team All-American, AP All-American in 1995, and we'll get into some details of that later. You had what I call a cup of coffee in the NFL with Carolina. They drafted you in the third round. A little bit of time with Arizona, and a physical with the Chicago Bears.
That didn't go too well.
Yeah, and then you played a little bit of Arena League ball. Playing career ended in 98, after 98. And you coached, your coaching career started at Radford High School, very near and dear to my heart, 1999 through 2001.
Yep.
Correct me if I get any of this wrong. You were then a GA at Virginia Tech in 2002 and 2003.
Yes. And
then you were the D-line coach at JMU and some other responsibilities from 2004 to 2011. And then Marshall from 2012 to 2020.
Yep.
And then, of course, Virginia Tech from 2021 through 2025. So anybody who doesn't know JC, he's 53 years old, and that is the story of his life so far.
Well, we'll start. You're wearing an East Tennessee State sweatshirt there. Tell us how this came about this offseason, how you came to work there.
It was a strange journey, to say the least. You know, it was you're out of – it's crazy. I was doing – me and Jen were doing everything we could to try to stay in Blacksburg, whether any kind of type of job. I mean, I talked to the Hokie Way people. I applied for a Hokie club job and didn't get it. Didn't even get an interview. I figured that one out.
That sounds like the Hokie club.
Yeah, so figure that one out. But Witt, I think was trying. Coach Pry was trying. I've had a couple conversations with Coach Franklin, and Coach Franklin at one point when we were in the transition, went out of his way to tell me that they had the Tech Leadership Council, and every one of them to a T said I was one of the guys that everybody on the team respected and that he should keep, but it didn't work out with him, and he obviously went a different direction, and I think Coach Pry was trying to help me land the high school relations job or something. It just wasn't going to fit, and the timing wasn't right, and then Witt was trying to find me something that would enable me to stay, and that didn't work out. And it was a long 3 months of not knowing what was going to go on and where my family were, what direction we were going to go in. And then it was I had a buddy who worked at Army, and he was trying to get me in on the D-line job there. And I think they had to hire a minority. So they ended up hiring the D-line coach from ETSU, strange enough, and then the head coach at Army reached out to the ETSU staff and said, I can't hire him, but you need to, call this guy. And I got a phone call on Thursday. I was on campus on Friday, accepted the job Saturday, and was at work on Sunday. So it happened really fast. And lucky enough, I'm home right now because we're actually on spring break. So
that's interesting to me that you were looking for any kind of job at Virginia Tech, because when I look at you and I view you over the years, I see football coach and guy that's out there on the practice field. Could you have envisioned yourself in an off-field role where you don't necessarily have that full-time part of it? Or
I could, and I did, and I was, Blacksburg's in my blood, and I'm a Hokie through and through, and my wife's in Tech's Hall of Fame. Was a great athlete here, student athlete. My daughter goes here, and I started my football coaching career at Radford High School, 20 minutes down the road, and to think about that, I did the trifecta here. It was pretty cool. If to play here, to GA here, and then to ultimately be an assistant coach here, and the opportunity I got to be the head coach for 3 games was one of the greatest honors I've ever had bestowed on me as a player or as a coach or as a human. So that was unique, and we just didn't want to leave Blacksburg. I was just trying to find any way. I mean, I even thought about getting out of it and doing something else just to be able to stay in Blacksburg. But coaching is in my blood. I'm not done coaching. I think I could have done something else. Would I have been happy? Probably not, but I'd have been in Blacksburg. But that all being said, things happen for a reason, and a new door open, and I'm excited to be the D-line coach at ETSU.
You've had not too many stops on your coaching career relative to. I mean, do you look at your 3 places for 21 years? Do you feel pretty fortunate to be able to not have to? I mean, you look at some assistant coaches; it's every 2 years, and they're up and moving somewhere else.
That was when you were at JMU. Was it same head coach the whole time, and Marshall same head coach the whole time?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I was kind of by design. I didn't want to bounce around. I didn't want to move my family around, and those were all great places. To take a job at JMU, I don't know if it's 10 or 12 grand, no benefits. That's what I took it as. We had to win 7 games or we were going to be fired. Well, sign me up. Let's go. And, we were lucky enough. We ended up winning the national title, with Mickey Matthews and some great coaches that worked there. And then, it was funny because Coach Matthews he had worked at Marshall for a long time. So there was a Marshall connection. My college roommate worked. Mike Byanson was a GA at Marshall for a while. George Del Rico worked in the Marshall weight room for a while with Scott Bennett, and so there was some connections with Marshall, and so I was lucky enough to get on with Marshall with Doc Holliday, and we had some great years. Won some conference championships, and everything went really well. But I'm very loyal, and I just. One, I didn't want to move my family around, and 2, one of the biggest joys I have as coaching is seeing a young man come in as a freshman, then being able to develop him on and off the field, spiritually, academically, athletically, everything that socially, and watching them grow, and looking 4 years later, like, God, how much this guy's really changed and matured, and like to think that I had a hand in that.
Just to go off of that, how difficult is that now? How many guys even get in from a freshman to a senior? I mean, it's so different now from when you started coaching. Yeah. Is that a big loss in college football that you don't necessarily get to see all those guys get all the way through?
I definitely think it's a loss. The greatest thing in coaching, if done right, is the player-coach relationship, and I think that's definitely taken a step back with the way things are now, and not every kid is not ready for major college football. I mean, I wasn't, and I turned out to be a pretty good player. And I mean, me personally, I wasn't ready emotionally, academically, athletically, So it does take away from that a little bit, and everybody is so in such a damn hurry to be rewarded that they don't go through the process.
Yeah. So we got to back up a little bit. It's your wife's birthday today.
Yes, it is.
Facebook tells me.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Jenny Root played basketball. Do you have the stats? You still have the stats?
Yeah, I called them up here. She's 1,500 points in her career. I think she's 8th all time at Virginia Tech now. She's still 6th overall in blocks, 3rd overall in effective field goal percentage. This is historically at Virginia Tech. So we wanted to ask you, who is the better Virginia Tech athlete?
She's in the Hall of Fame, and you're not, which I find weird.
Wow. I got no comment on that one. But so I'll put it back to you then, Andy. What's more impressive, being in Hall of Fame in your college or being a third-round draft pick? What's more? I can tell you which one paid more.
That's true. I might go Hall of Fame at the college, but both pretty good athletes. Yeah. Let's put it this way.
Well,
I'm talking like I ever played college sports of any kind here.
Well, I'll let the cat out of the bag. Whenever she's in the room, I argue that it's third-round draft pick, and I'll do that till I'm blue in the face. But honestly, it's definitely the Hall of Fame aspect. The fact that she was so consistent over 4 years. When she left. Or when she graduated, she was maybe second in scoring, first in rebound. She slid down the ranks a little bit. How her jersey's not retired is mind-boggling to me. Until Liz came along, she was the only conference player of the year that men or women had in Virginia Tech history.
Really?
And yeah, she was Metro Conference player of the year.
Metro Conference, which was not. We're not talking A10. We're talking Metro.
So. So she had a brilliant career, and she sustained it. She was very consistent over 4 years, where I probably wasn't as consistent. I had a really, really good senior year, and that, to me, that's the difference.
So I've always wanted to ask you this. How did you guys actually meet? Because right or wrong, I have this notion in my head that they got the Student Athlete Performance Center now, where athletes from all kinds of different sports mingle with each other up there. I've seen it. They didn't have that kind of thing back in the day. How did you guys meet?
Well, how we actually met the first time was they used to have these things called block parties.
I remember those well, JC.
And for some reason, I was in the block party, and
you're probably looking for a friend to take home, right?
There was a few of us, and I do believe we were pushing a keg around in a shopping cart at the time. And I said, "Hey, tall girl, do you want a beer?" And she did. And that's how we met, and then we were just friends, acquaintances. We both lived in Cochran. We always ate the same dining facility. We went to the same parties. We knew the same people. We were, casual friends, acquaintances. But then the summer when she was done, and going into my last year, because she didn't redshirt, I did. We just that summer we just kept bumping into each other more and more, and we became closer and closer. And I just asked her on a date, and it kind of happened.
Hey, tall girl, want a beer? Added to the great pickup lines in history right there.
I love it, man.
Got to be top 5 at least.
Yeah, that's we'll clip that for social media. So you're 6'4", is that right?
6'3" and some change, I think, at the combine, but yeah, close to 6'4".
And how tall is she?
She's 6'2".
How tall are your kids?
We make fun of the oldest one for being only 5'11". She petered out of 5'11". She gets made fun of in our house, and that's Maddie, who's got one semester left, dual major. So I'm gonna make sure I get that right. Political science and criminology, and she's gonna go be a lawyer. I think. I know she's gonna be a lawyer. I think she's gonna go down to New Orleans. Beth Dunkelberg is down there. If you remember the old basketball coach, her and Jenny are really close, and so she's gonna go down to New Orleans where Beth is, and go to Loyola. I think New Orleans is the plan. Don't quote me on that. I don't think it's going to change. And
well, it's going to be on the internet now.
Yeah, our youngest is she might be taller than me now, because she was home and she likes to put her arm around me and look down on me. But Riley she's every bit of 6'3", maybe close to 6'4" now, and she plays basketball at Western Carolina, which happens to be a big rival of ETSU.
Nice.
We're a house divided.
You'll have to hide the logo when she's playing.
Yeah, well, I'm all W. I will not, I will not say that I'm for ETSU women's basketball, but everything else.
So what do you want to get into now? Because I want to talk to him about back at the beginning when he was being recruited by Tech.
Let's go back in playing days here.
All right. So Chris Coleman talks about how I think you were on a podcast with Dwight Vick, and you talked about your recruitment. Now, you were out of Wikipedia says Dunkirk, Maryland. What high school was it?
Northern High School.
Northern High School. Okay.
Yeah.
And yet you went on a recruiting visit to UVA. Clearly got recruited by Tech. How did you wind up coming down to here to get recruited?
It's funny. I didn't actually go on a recruiting trip to UVA. You talk about a funny Elmo story. So I went to UVA in summer camps. Back then, that's how they kind of recruited you. You go to a 2 or 3 day camp, and I went there, and I still love Coach Welsh. I thought he was a really good coach. And but so I was there at camp, and at the time I was playing linebacker. And they had a linebacker coach there, and I mean, the guy is dog cussing me up and down. I can't do anything right. I was like, I can't even get a line right. I'm like, this. So then I get back and I meet my high school coach, Jerry Franks, and he's like, well, what'd you think? I said, it was nice. I liked it. I could see myself going. Or I said, I could see myself, being on that campus and playing for Coach Welsh. She goes, I said, but they had a linebacker coach there. I said, I'm not playing for that son of a gun. I can tell you that right now. He goes, okay. So, well, the linebacker coach ended up being Phil Almation, and I ended up playing for him 2 or 3 years later anyway. But so yeah, I didn't really. UVA was never on my radar. My final 3 were Tech, West Virginia, and Maryland. And what's funny is I grew up a West Virginia fan, like the '88 team that played for the national title with Major Harris, and I was all about that. But it's just something different about Tech when I came here. The place, the people, Coach Beamer, my relationship with Billy Height, and it was I just felt something different that I didn't feel at the other 2 places. And Maryland was probably too close to my hometown. I wanted something different. I wanted to get away, and so Tech was the spot, which is kind of funny. You look at back now when Billy Height walked into to my high school. First question I asked him, "Are y'all 1A or 1AA?" Because I'm going 1A. I had never heard of Virginia Tech.
No kidding.
I mean, because I lived in ACC country, and everything was ACC. Tech was an independent at the time, and I didn't know anything about it. I had never really heard of Virginia Tech, and so they must have done a hell of a job recruiting me, because lo and behold, I became a Hokie.
Now, you mentioned it didn't really click right away for you. It kind of came together later in your career. I'm curious, how would J.C. Price, the player, have reacted to J.C. Price, the coach, if you were coaching yourself back then?
Well, that was it's ironic, because my wife reminds me of that from time to time. If I come home and I'm mentioning about a player, how he's acting or something, that she goes, remember how he used to be, and it snaps right back into place. And but that's kind of why I got into it. Is some coaches like Coach Height. One of the reasons that I came to Virginia Tech, I believe, is my high school coach, Jerry Franks, and Billy Height were very close, and they had worked together. And Billy promised that he would help me navigate the tough times, and they're going to be tough. I told my daughters before they went to college, everything's not going to go well all the time. And the fact that Billy Height was patient with me, Coach Beamer was patient with me, and they allowed me to make some mistakes and then learn from those mistakes is what I try to do as a coach.
So Billy, even though he was a running backs coach, he was your primary recruiter, because Maryland was his area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were. I looked at something I wrote about you many years ago. We'll get to that in a few minutes. I said you were a solid but unspectacular defensive tackle until your senior year when you blew up.
Yeah.
Now, I know what was holding your career back up to that point. Some of it may have been just the maturation process, but you had something else going on physically, right?
Yeah. I blame my dad. My dad gave me bad hair and bad back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was always fighting the L4, L5 disc issue the entire time. And I don't think, in fact, I think I only went through maybe 1 or 2 spring balls. Spring practices. I was hardly ever practicing. I can't remember her last name, Cindy, the chiropractor in town. I mean, she probably
keep going. I'll look it up.
She probably is one that I would credit to enable me to really play through my senior year and play as well as I did because of what her and her people did, with me physically. I can't remember her last name for some reason.
See, now
I did get hit in the head for a living. So,
Andy, you got a question while I look at this piece of trivia?
You talk about that 1995 season, such a seminal season in Virginia Tech history. You guys start 0-2. Then that Miami game, that is one of your famous games, that Miami game. Take us through that game and just just the thought process of that locker room where you guys are 0-2 and, your season is on the line effectively.
Yeah, it was, I think Jim Barron was the first person that stood up and was like, was like, we're not losing anymore. And then we all decided that we were just going to go back to work and work hard, outwork everyone we played. It wasn't, And it wasn't like we were blowing people out. We were winning some close games. I mean, I think up at Pitt we blocked 2 or 3 punts to win the game. It was just
Navy. You beat 14-7.
14 nothing.
Nothing.
They didn't score.
You're 7-0 till late, right?
You remember the shutouts?
Yes, he does. Just like Bud Foster.
So the thing I remember the most about the '95 team is just how close we were. How we always hung out with each other. It was just a true caring for each other on that team, and we just didn't want to let anybody down. And we didn't see the 0-2 start happening for sure. We thought we were primed for a breakout year, and but that's happened a couple of times to Tech in its history. Maybe 04, or they won the ACC after starting 0-2, and so. We're not strangers to adversity here in Blacksburg, and you got to find a way to overcome it. And we did.
It was also, wasn't it also the 2010 team that started off 0-2?
Yeah.
What do you remember about that Sugar Bowl that season? Just that experience in New Orleans. If I remember, when Pry got hired, he made a reference to Bourbon Street that week.
Yeah.
What is that like as a player to go through that?
It was surreal. And if you. I'm probably the worst self-promoter in the world of self-promotion in the history of mankind. But if you ask Billy Height, when we knew we were going to win that game, because the captains, the senior class, we all got together and we decided that even though we had, I think, two or maybe like at least 2 more days of that we were able to go out at night, we decided to shut it down. And, why, I don't know why it was me, but it was me that stood up in front of the team and said, we're done. We're done. We came down here to win the game. You can party afterwards. And that was a cool thing, too, is usually, after the games, whether it's a bowl game or otherwise, you get on a plane, you head home. Where Coach Beamer, we stayed there the next night. So we got to stay there a whole extra day after the game, which was really cool. We got a chance to hang out with each other and kind of set it out the right way. But probably the thing I remember the most after the game, I didn't want to take my uniform off. It was, I believe it was Lester, my mom, and my wife, and me were the only 4 people left in the locker room. Lester's over there twitching. You got to go. He's trying to. I wanted to go downtown. I wanted to go down Bourbon Street in my uniform, but Lester wouldn't let me. But I just didn't want to take it off. I didn't want that night to end.
So several things. First of all, it was Cindy Henderson.
Cindy Henderson, yeah.
So I mean, you when I talked to you previously, and you said you went into that season pain-free.
Yeah.
And so let's run over the numbers. You had 4 sacks against Miami alone. You had 8 sacks for the season. Now, folks, this is a defensive tackle. 104 tackles, 8 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 38 quarterback hurries. And this was in the era before they started counting bowl game statistics. So and they didn't play conference championship games. So we're talking 12 games. Those are some pretty good numbers.
So better defensive line, that 99 team or the 95 team?
95.
No doubt?
No doubt. I think, and they were very good, don't get me wrong, but I think we had a little more depth. I mean, you take, me and Engelberger cancel each other out. Corey and Cornell probably cancel each other out. But I'm riding with my boys from Death Row all day.
Some talent on those teams. It's incredible.
Yeah. So everybody, like Andy just did, talks to you about the Miami game and the Sugar Bowl. What else do you recall from that season as far as individual games and moments? We could probably do a whole podcast about that, but just give me a few.
One of them for me would probably be the Navy game. I actually hyperextended my elbow on a Wednesday practice, reaching for a tackle, and I hyperextended it. And I grew up 20 minutes from the Naval Academy, and I had a ton of friends and family going to that game, and I wasn't supposed to play in it. And I said, well, just cast it up and let's go. And I actually played the game, probably unsafe as hell, but I played with the cast from here down to my wrist, and they put it in about a 45-degree angle, and I went out and I played. And I think I had 2 sacks that game and maybe 10 tackles, and we won the game 14-0. And it was a dog fight.
14-0. Let's be clear about that.
It was a dog fight, but that to me, that was I remember that one. Just you have to be willing to go out there and play in pain. And then I think that sometimes players nowadays don't get that. You know, that you're not always going to feel good, but you still, if you're out there, you got to perform.
Well, that was in my days before being married and having kids. So I lived in Charlottesville, but I drove up and saw that game. I remember being there for that game. So talking about playing in pain, first of all, a couple things. You were really tight with Eddie Farrell.
Yeah, me and Freddie, we hung out a bunch. You know, he was. I saw him about every day because it literally got to the point where I was in the training room every morning. You know, and
he was the trainer.
Yeah, he was the head athletic trainer, and I love that guy. He was great. He had a great sense of humor, and I miss him dearly. He was a good friend, and he was a great athletic trainer. And even though it was a lot of ice and stem back in the day, but I have fond memories of Eddie Farrell for sure.
And he did a thing for you where, again, you hadn't really stood out for most of your career, but apparently the NFL people were coming through Virginia Tech prior to the '95 season, before you blew up.
Yeah.
And they were asking him, who should we look at? Who should we pay attention to? Or they were looking for information on certain players. And before they left, Eddie said, you need to also look at this J.C. Price guy.
Yes, he did. He was, like I said, we got to know each other really well from all the time spent in the training room before practices, and back then you had to go in at 7 a.m, but I had to go in anywhere. I wouldn't have made it through the week or made it through practices without Eddie and his staff and Doc Lagan and taking the little, I probably took a pain pill before every game just to be able to manage it. But my senior year, I was literally the healthiest I'd ever been. And, there was times I remember Southern Miss game, the beds were just really soft. And I woke up that morning and I could barely walk, and that was my junior year. That was before, I really found Cindy Henderson and her staff, and I give her a ton of credit. I think I ended up signing a picture for it. And I said, thanks for straightening me out. So,
literally.
Yeah, she was great.
Well, you finish up your career, you go into the NFL draft process, the third round pick there. What was that whole process like for you? The lead up to the draft itself, were you surprised where you went or by the team that took you? And kind of take us through that whole process.
Well, that's a funny story too. So back then, for some reason, I don't know if many schools did it, but Tech certainly didn't. So we didn't have just a certain pro day.
Right.
Like it was scheduled where every team would come. So, the guys that my senior year, we were working out 2 and 3 times a week. If one scout came by, you had to work out for him, and it got to be tough on you because you think about putting max effort, running 40s, the bench press multiple times in a week, took a toll on your body. And my agent at the time, when the day of the combine, I actually go to the combine, I had the flu. So I was unable to work out the combine. I did all the interviews, and my agent was telling me I thought I was going to go in the 4th round. So, and back then the draft was 2 days. It was Saturday and Sunday, and
you thought the Jets were interested in you, right?
Yeah. So he told me, I thought I was going to go first pick of the 4th round of the Jets. So I thought I was going to go early Sunday to the Jets. That was my belief. So what do? You throw a party Saturday night when you don't think you're getting drafted until Sunday morning.
Right.
Well, in the middle of the party that we were having, the phone rang, and it was the Carolina Panthers. And I was getting picked late in the 3rd, late Saturday night. So, but what's crazy about that, so back to the story about the workouts and things. And that had gone on for weeks. Just one team coming by and you having to work out. And then the Carolina Panthers came by. And I just had enough. I couldn't do it. And I told Coach Gentry, called me, and I said, Coach, I can't do it. I said, I'm just exhausted. I may or may not have gone out to Arnold's last night. I don't think this is a good idea. So I actually he told him that I had the flu. And they ended up drafting me. So I didn't even work out for the team.
Air of mystery around it.
That drafted me, yeah. So you go figure that one out. So no, I had no idea the Panthers were going to draft me because I didn't even work out for them, so.
But they also ran a 3-4.
Yeah. I was, and that's part of the reason I got cut. I was supposed to keep Greg Skrepenak off of Sam Mills, and Greg Skrepenak didn't block Sam Mills. I blocked Sam Mills, so I was not meant for a read technique type of defensive front, and I didn't do very well. And I did score a touchdown though. I did. It was funny, is my dad missed it. He was in the bathroom, but I intercepted a pass against the Giants in a preseason game and scored a touchdown. But he ended up missing it because he was in the bathroom. So.
Do you have that on video anywhere? Because I remember seeing that on television.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a VHS tape somewhere, but no, I don't. Somewhere.
And then so Carolina cut you, and then but you got picked up by Arizona pretty quick right after that.
Yeah. And then,
but at this point, your back started bothering you again.
Yeah. Then the back bugs started biting me. What was cool about Arizona was Mean Joe Green was my D-line coach out there. So he was mean.
Did he give you his Coca-Cola and his jersey?
No, he never offered me a Coke, but. One of the best things was out in Arizona is they would feed you lunch. Like, you're there, it's a job. I mean, you're there all day. I mean, you got there at 7 in the morning, you didn't go home until 5, and they fed you lunch. And so it was a little small cafeteria, and every day I literally because I'm a football junkie. I love watching all those NFL reruns and the old Super Bowl highlights and all those things. And every day, Carl Mock, who was the offensive line coach, who was the center for the Houston Oilers all those years that played against the Steelers, him and Joe would eat lunch every day with each other. And they would sit there and argue, oh, Joe, I blocked you, and oh, you didn't, and they would sit there and they would argue and fight and talk about which team was better and why Houston didn't win. And I mean, I wasn't sitting at the table with them, but I damn sure was going to sit close enough where I could listen. Yeah. And I enjoyed just listening to their conversations and going back and forth. And they would argue. I mean, just go after each other. See you tomorrow, Joe. Okay, but Arizona was a good place, and it was a great town, and they hadn't built the stadium yet. So the hard part was you're playing in Sun Devil Stadium.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The hard part really was, everything I'd ever known and loved was back here on the East Coast. So I spent my first year with Arizona. I ended on injured reserve IR, and then the next year I spent the entire season on IR, and I was on borrowed time, and that's when I went to the Bears, and they basically flew me out to fail me on a physical. Then when I was the World League was a thing back then, and so I go down to Atlanta where the World League was, and I'd fail that physical, and somehow I passed arena ball physical. I played arena ball, and that was a great time. I just didn't want to get a real job yet. And I couldn't even make it through arena ball practice, which is about as hard as a walk through. But so I was down there with William Yarborough Killer and James Barron. Jim Barron were down there, and we had a blast. We won some games, and it was fun. And Coach Perduto, I still talk to him. He was the head coach of the Nashville Cats back then, and we still talk and have a great relationship. He's a scout for the Chiefs, and so there's some good things that come of it, I wore 35, so I wore Jen's number because I had to have an eligible number because I was playing tight end, so I ended up rocking the 35 in honor of my wife. So
you played tight end. That's interesting.
Yeah, you had to report. You had to hold up your hand, but you basically blocked 95% of the time. So
I was gonna say, how many touchdowns did you score in that?
Nah, not many.
Not many.
No,
okay.
Not many. Yeah.
So when you sort of see the end of the tunnel with your playing career at that point, how do you decide to get into coaching? Is that something you had wanted to do? Does it happen by accident that you come across this career?
If you look back at my high school yearbook, my senior superlatives, I knew I wanted to be a coach.
Okay.
I thought I'd be a high school coach, to be honest with you. But so then it was still, how's the opportunity present itself? Well, I'm sitting around one day, and the first thing I did was I sold cars for like 6 months for Chevrolet and Pulaski, Hudson Chevrolet and Pulaski.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
It was a miserable existence. I hated it. I mean, Mr. Hudson was very gracious to give me a job, but I ended up quitting after about 6 months. Didn't tell my wife. I just up and quit, and so I had no plan of what I was going to do next or anything like that. And at the time, so a friend of mine was on trial, so I was going every day to the courthouse just to support him, and the guy who was actually one of the prosecutors noticed me on one of the breaks and said hi to him. We struck up a conversation.
One of the Davises.
It was Richie.
Yeah.
So Richie Davis says, what are you doing? Absolutely nothing. I'm actually not doing anything right now. And he's like, would you want to coach some high school football? And I said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. Why not? And I went over and met Norm Lindenberg, And we talked some football, fell in love with the place, and next thing you know, it's go Bobcats. And it was a great experience, and had, all those great years there. And, I found a way to get into school, went back and got my teaching degree, and thought that I was going to do that until the prospect of being a GA came up here at Tech.
So I've known Richie since I was 5 years old.
Oh, Richie's a great guy.
And when I was a kid, I lived across the street from the Radford High School football stadium for about 5 years when they were winning state championships in the 70s. So so let's get into that. You and I interviewed you 25 years ago, October of 2001, because I'm sure it was Richie. Richie came to me and said, J.C. Price is at Radford High School. You should go interview him. So I said, okay. And I'd never met Coach Lindenberg before. And I went and met him. I remember I talked to Coach about you on the practice field. And then he gave me your phone number, and I called you up that night. You got home at night at it was probably 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. And so, this is 2001. It's only 6 years after the Sugar Bowl, and I'm still I'm still pretty much a fanboy at that point. I'd been running Hokie Central Tech Sideline for a while, and but it was I was excited to talk to you. So we talked on the phone, and long interview, and finally it was about midnight 30, and you said, I kind of need to go to bed because you were getting up at like 5 and 6 in the morning. But what I remember about it is going to talk to Coach Lindenberg, and you got there in fall of 99, and you coached 99, 2000, 2001. And I remember being out on the practice field with Coach Lindenberg, and I don't remember what I asked him, but I said, so let's talk about J.C. Price. And I remember the look on his face. He looked at me and he said, he's coaching at the wrong level. And I said, really? He said, yeah, he's going to be a college coach or an NFL coach. And so, of course, he spoke very highly of you. I remember that. And let's see. So you just said that you pictured yourself in coaching as being a high school coach. And you talked at the time about some of the things you were enjoying about dealing with the kids and learning about their home lives and how that affects their school life and their football and practice life. And then you told me, remember, this is 2001, you said, to be honest, if I coached college football, I would do it at Tech. I mean, by starting the GA process. I probably could have gone other places, but to me, it'd be kind of like giving your heart to somebody else.
Yeah.
So you said if you were going to get into college coaching, it was going to be a GA at Virginia Tech. And then the fall of 2002, guess what you were doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I had to wait. I think, I don't think I know, Billy Housewright was the GA while I was coaching at Radford. And, he ended up doing it for 3 years, hence why I coached at Radford for 3 years. And I had other opportunities. Like I said, my college roommate was GA at Marshall, and I could have done it at Marshall. I probably could have been a GA at other places. But I was enjoying my time at Radford, learning how to coach, learning a lot from Coach Lindenberg, and how much energy that man brought to practice every day, was amazing. And, his football knowledge and the things I learned from him were priceless, and so it gave me a good basis, good coaching start to be under Norm for those 3 years. But I basically waited for the GA spot to come open. So and once again, Coach Height was the one that was in charge of hiring the GAs, so I knew I had a pretty good shot at it.
Yeah.
When you come back into coaching or start into coaching, does it open your eyes all of a sudden and go, oh, that's why a coach would approach a player, me like that when I was playing? Does it just a whole new worldview of how you're looking at football?
Yeah, you definitely have a better appreciation of the coaches and the work they put in and the time away from their family. As a player, you don't think about those things. You don't think about the hours that they put in, the sacrifices that their families make so you can be successful on the field, so you can go out there and do what you do, and the connection of it. And so, once you step behind that curtain, it definitely gave you a better sense of, what it takes to succeed as a coach and what those guys go through on a daily basis.
Did it feel natural? I mean, once you stepped into that role, you're like, hey, I was kind of born to do this, or I'm good at this.
I think so. I think some people are born to be coaches, and I think that was in my blood, and it was evident to me early on. There was times that, when I was playing rec ball, the leadership abilities, the capabilities that you have, I think you grow them as a player, and then that leads you into being a better coach.
So another thing you said to me back then, you said, and this is unique to college coaching. One thing that intrigues me about college coaching is that you get to go recruit, and you get to go test your people skills on an everyday basis. It's more fulfilling for your ego. Am I out coaching this guy? Am I out recruiting this guy?
Yeah, well, it's about Jimmy's and Joe's. It's not about what you know. You got to have better players.
It's kind of like selling cars, right?
Oh,
you
yeah.
got that experience of it.
Yeah,
Salesmanship.
I was really good at selling cars. Yeah, I mean, you're selling yourself, and you're selling the school, and that's, the past 5 years, recruiting here at Virginia Tech, I think it was a little bit more special because I think you hear it in somebody's voice when they're recruiting for their alma mater, when they're recruiting for their school, their home. The whole "this is home" thing is not just a moniker; it's how I feel, and so I think when you're out there recruiting and you can really sell something that then you can expand on your own experiences and describe how your experience was at this place, and hopefully they can see themselves going to the same place. But nowadays it's about the paycheck. It's about you got to stroke a check at this level, and that's kind of the exciting thing about going back to FCS. I'm going kind of back where I started, and in this business, you're gonna work your way up, and be careful how you treat people because you're gonna pass people going the other way at the end of it. And so I'm real excited about hopefully getting back to recruiting the way it was. Obviously we have some money at ETSU and we give out some NIL, but nothing compared to what Tech and the ACC level is.
Yeah. And you hear college coaches talking about that a lot these days, about looking for kids that they can coach for 4 years. I saw an interview with Carol Lawson, the Duke coach, the basketball coach, and she seeks out those kids that want to have that longer relationship with the coach, so we'll see how that stuff goes.
This Tech Sideline video comes to you from the Tech Solutions studio. Tech Solutions, located in Arlington, Virginia, provides specialized CETA engineering and financial advisory services to the Department of Defense and Intelligence community. Based on the philosophy of only hiring the best of the best, we pride ourselves on being customer and mission focused. A Washington Post top workplace winner in 2024 and 2025, we're always looking for talented and motivated individuals to join our team. Visit techsolutionsva.com/careers to learn more. That is TECsolutionsva.com/careers.
So do you have anything you want to ask him about JMU and Marshall?
I'll let you ask that if you'd like.
No, I don't. I want to get into the Virginia Tech.
Let's get into Virginia Tech.
Yeah. So I've got some questions here people want me to ask you. Okay. So why don't you take the lead on that while I look through some of these questions. And
well, you had such a good stretch there, JMU and Marshall. What's going through your mind when the Virginia Tech opportunity opens up in what was it here, 2019 or 2021?
Well, the first thing I thought was I was out of work.
Right.
It was actually the first time in my coaching career that I didn't have a job. I didn't get fired. Doc Holliday's contract was up, and they didn't renew his contract. So, and then the new guy, Coach Huff, didn't retain me. Sort of the same thing happened here with Coach Franklin. So, I was actually out of work, and at the time, and of course, I always wanted to come back to Blacksburg. I mean, that's always been the goal. It took me 17 years to do it, and that was always the goal for me. But so I'm home, I'm out of work, and I can't remember if he was a GA or he was a younger coach that I coached with here at Tech or at Marshall was now here at Virginia Tech.
Okay.
And he kind of gave me the heads up that Tap may be leaving. So I put I never went after something so hard in my life. Whether it was boosters calling, I was calling Coach Fuente, I was calling Jay Ham, I was calling Tap, I was calling everybody I knew to try to get in on the job. And at the time, I wouldn't have gotten the job if it wasn't for Justin Hamilton and Daryl Tapp. I mean, 100%. They stood on the table for me because, obviously in this profession, there's certain things that happen from time to time, and I've missed out on many opportunities because I'm not a minority. And I think Justin Fuente wanted to hire a minority because he was losing a minority in Daryl Tapp, and Daryl was leaving to go to San Francisco, and obviously I wasn't in the meeting, but basically the gist of the meeting went that Fuente was talking to Justin Hamilton, Daryl Tapp, about hiring a minority, and Coach Fuente was sure that he needed to hire a minority for one reason or another. And he looked at Daryl and said, "Daryl, do you think I have to hire a minority?" And Daryl said, "Yes, you probably do." And then Justin looked at Daryl and said, "What about one name, JC?" He goes, "Nope, that's who you need to hire." So Daryl Tappan and Justin Hamilton stood on the table for me in front of Fuente, and that's how I was lucky enough to get the job back in, what was it, 2019, 2020?
2021, I think it was. That was a job that you had wanted for a while. Once you get here, does it live up to the reality of what you had in your mind wanting to get it?
Yeah, I mean, every day that I've worked here has been a blessing, and it's something that I've dreamed about, and it lived up to every 100%. And that's what makes leaving and not being retained by Franklin and not being able to find something to stay in Blacksburg for those 3 months when I was out of work. That's what made it tough. It made it tough, and I'm sure I wasn't always the easiest person to be living with. And God bless my wife for and when I was done in the NFL, I went to a dark place. I was miserable. I was depressed, and she pulled me out of it, and she basically did the same thing here at Tech after everything went down this way.
So when you came back to Tech, just thinking about the infrastructure, the Merriman Center had been built, stadium had been expanded, all kinds of stuff. So,
yeah, it definitely doesn't look like the stadium I played in, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then the whole the cafeteria upstairs and the Merriman Center was incredible. And when I was being recruited, I was promised a weight room in Merriman, but somehow it didn't materialize till '98. So,
you mentioned in the intro that the stint as the interim head coach, great honor to have it. I mean, take us through when that happens. I mean, it's obviously not a situation you want.
No,
I don't think anybody wants to see the head coach get fired in that situation, but it happened, and you're called up in that situation.
Yeah.
What's going through your head that week?
Well, I didn't have a lot of time to think it through, to be honest with you. I think it was Tuesday morning. Coach Boleyn, I call him Coach, so John Boleyn, me and him had a conversation, and it was like that quick. And so he told me basically almost minutes before we had to have a team meeting. And
so this is like 6 a.m. This is early.
It's early, and it's, I found out right before the team meeting that Coach Fuente was not going to be, retained, and I was going to be the guy. And then Whit spoke to the team, and hey, we got to go practice. We got to get ready for Miami. And so I didn't have a lot of time to think about it and process it, or plan to do it. I had to kind of swing it or wing it and go by feel. And I did the best I could. And it was hard. But it was very satisfying at the same time. It was a lot of sleepless nights trying to find a way to motivate kids and try to find a way just to win one more game so we can go to a bowl. And so it was tough, but very satisfying.
Talking about thrown into the fire, it's like it happens that week, and like, oh, by the way, go to Miami and play this game. You guys beat UVA, and
we should have beat Miami.
Remind me the specifics of that game. What happened?
It was a rainy game. I want to say Blumrick started that game at quarterback. He ran for like 100 yards in that game. It was very hard to throw because it was a pretty rainy game. But
it was, we onside kicked and got it. It was a terrible onside kick, but we got it. The turning point of the game, I think we ended up losing maybe by 10 points, maybe one score, I don't remember. But the turning point was a 4th and 1, and it was like Miami was backed up in their own territory, and they jumped at us like 21-0, and then we stormed back, and it's 4th and 1, and we stopped them. But they said everybody on TV said it looked like we stopped them, but they spotted it as a first down, because if you don't, then back in the day the rule was then you couldn't review it or challenge it if they so they marked it a first down, and then they were going to look at it, and for some reason the sideline camera didn't work.
No,
it like malfunctioned or something. And
strange things happen in Miami with replay.
So they ended up getting the first down, and they ended up running the clock out and winning the game. But that was the turning point. But so. As a head coach, I think I faked it. I did something crazy just about every game. We onside kicked in Miami. we had the Philly special against UVA, and then we faked the punt in the bowl game. So it was fun.
You were going to leave anything in the holster in those games.
I had nothing to do with the offense. I didn't have any. I let those guys coach. I didn't change anything. We kept routines. I tried to make small tweaks, but I didn't interfere. I let those guys coach and make decisions. And the hard thing about being a head coach is, you don't need to make a decision until you have to make a decision. So you're kind of like watching a game and something pops up. Oh, now I gotta make a decision. So it was a very unique experience for me, and I'm glad it happened the way it did. I'm not happy that Coach Fuente got fired, but because he was a very good football coach. I learned a lot of things from him with my short stint with him, but you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens.
That UVA game, indelible image afterwards. You smoking a cigar that's going to be plastered on, remembrances of UVA games forever. Where did that rank in the history of games that you had against UVA? I mean, you had a pretty good one in 1995. Yeah. That was like that. How does that compare as doing it as a coach and the satisfaction of being bowl eligible?
Yeah. I think that's probably the greatest day I ever had as a coach, period. I mean, I'd have to rank that one. I had some good ones. I had some good ones at other places. Coming here as a D-line coach for JMU, and we beat Tech. That was a pretty good day.
That never happened.
Yeah, it did. Yes, it did. So as a player, as a coach, so I've seen it all. I've seen this place grow. I was around, even though I was coaching at Radford High School, I was around, during the national championship. I went to that game. I'm in the stands for the national championship game, and just to see Blacksburg, the Christiansburg area, the school, I think I have a unique view of it because I've seen the thing grow from, 2-8-1 to being a power. And I'm sorry, I feel like I let everyone down the last 5 years. We didn't get it done, but there's a lot of factors why we didn't get it done the last 5 years. But, but I've seen the place grow and change and to grow what it is today. And the fans are the best fans in the world. Tech fans deserve a winner. And I hope that Coach Franklin gets it done.
I think in your interim stint there, I don't think anybody's going to accuse you of not giving it your all in those games. The Pinstripe Bowl specifically. Tell us about the pregame speech and what happened there.
It wasn't a good one. I planned it out, and the whole fire and brimstone thing. I thought I had him going, and as we go to exit, I was like, I'm gonna punch this locker. Well, you think of metal lockers, but little did I know it was not a locker. It was a piece of locker-looking metal over concrete. So this hand still doesn't work right. So I basically shattered my hand. But what was funny was how many players and coaches never knew.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was broke instantly. And I walked up the trainer for the game. They're looking at it. We got to take this and we got to take you in there and x-ray. They're like, no, we're going to kick off. There's no way, man. Just put a Band-Aid on where it's bleeding. Let's go. I just, so.
Wasn't that you were there in the national anthem and you're feeling it? It's like dripping blood during the national anthem.
Oh, yeah. Like before we walked out, I got it down. I'm down by my side, and it's throbbing. It was very painful. I did my best to hide it, and blood's dripping down my finger. And then, it was, after the game, we go to shake hands, and Coach Loxley, he's a good guy. He goes to shake it's my right hand. I went to go shake with my left hand. He goes, "What the hell?" I showed him my hand. He goes, he gave me that look. I'm like, "Yeah, don't ask." So
you are no stranger to pain when it comes to football, right?
And some stupidly and self-inflicted. So.
Did that 3-game stint whet your appetite for being a head coach? I mean, you're 53 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was always the dream, but sometimes dreams don't come true. And I've been blessed to have the career I've had so far, and it's not over. And who's to say in the next year or two I don't get a shot? But if I don't, then I'm okay with it. That's there's a lot of things that. I think Coach Pry went through that. I think, there's some things that as a head coach that you don't realize you got to do. And sometimes the head coaching job is not necessarily have to do a lot to do with coaching. It's a lot of the off the field things and more like a managerial role. And am I fit for that? I don't know.
Yeah. You've coached a lot of players over your career, and whenever I ask a coach to single out a player, it's like they all meant a lot to me. And I know that that's the direction you might go with this. But was there ever a player you coached or players that you woke up and you're like, man, I can't wait to coach that guy today? Like, we just see the game on the same wavelength, and it's just a joy to go out there on the practice field with this guy.
I mean, there's several of them, and but there's three probably that hold a special place to me because they were the first guys that I took from freshman through their senior year. That's Arthur Moats, Sam Daniels, and Dominique White. Arthur Moats went on to get drafted in the 6th round, had a great career with the Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. I think he was actually the one who ended Brett Favre's career, the sack where he hurt his arm.
Oh, okay.
Great guy, does a lot of things for the Steelers right now. Sam Daniels is, and I coached all these guys at JMU the first year I was there. I think they came in 2005, so it was my second year as a coach, and those guys walked on campus as freshmen. Sam Daniels is currently actually the D-line coach for UCLA. He was at JMU, so he was back coaching for his alma mater, which was a unique thing. And all these three guys, my daughters consider that they're brothers to them. And there's several guys who also, and the other one's Dominique White, he works for the government down in Southern Maryland right now. But those three guys probably are different from the fact that they were the first guys that I saw from their freshman year on. But then you got guys like Ryan B, James Rouse. There's several guys that Alex Bazzi. There's so many different guys, and I'm gonna end up leaving a bunch of names out. And please don't get offended if I don't. But I wake up and I'm excited to coach whoever's in the room. And I told the guys at ETSU, I can't wait to get back and work with those guys. And I think that's what you have to have as a coach. You gotta have that fire and the passion. And I look forward to every day. I don't have bad days. They're good or great. I try to be as positive as I can. And I'm coaching ball for a living. I've never worked a day in my life. Oh, I did. I worked for 6 months and I quit.
Selling cars.
So
That's right.
Selling cars. But other than that, to me, I'm a ball coach. I get to coach ball. I've never had a real job and don't want one, and I haven't worked a day in my life.
It feels like these guys that you coach really become family.
Yeah.
Over this time. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they come to a bunch of your daughter's basketball games?
Oh, yeah.
When she was a senior in high school, like in the crowd cheering her on.
Yep. So that actually started in Huntington at Marshall.
Okay.
Where the players, and one game we had an away game, and we got back like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'll be damned if not most, if not everyone, the D linemen showed up for my daughter's 9 o'clock rec league game, and that's, so you coach these guys, and then you bring them into your house, and they become part of your family. And not all, you're not going to have a lifelong relationship with all of them, but there's certain ones that you still keep in touch with. One year on spring break, kid I coached, Ryan B, him and our families, we went on spring break together, with his family and his brothers and his sister and my wife and my kids. So it's, that's part of this. The really satisfying part when you really do find a close-knit relationship with a guy like James Rouse, who comes back to, once he was done, he was with the Houston Texans, and he comes back, and him and his wife and their 2 kids stay with us, during alumni weekend, and we babysit their kids while they go out, So it's unique situations like that sometimes people don't see behind the scenes, so.
So let's talk about some of the guys you coached at Virginia Tech. Like recently, last year, one of the questions that fans want us to ask you is the D linemen that are coming up through the program right now, which ones are promising and which ones should Hokie fans look for?
That's ever changing. Obviously, Kamari is the headliner. And talk about, once again, it's about relationships. With Kamari, I was actually at Marshall when he was at high school, in Kellam High School in Virginia Beach. And he was playing linebacker. And so I was actually the first person to offer Kamari a scholarship.
It's hard to imagine him as a linebacker.
Yeah. Well, he's
such a beast now.
Yeah. So, his journey started back when I was at Marshall, and, our relationship. And so I knew him from the time, he was a sophomore, junior in high school. And so he's definitely the guy. He's going to have a breakout year. And I know that guy, you got to tell him to stop working out. I mean, he would work out, do everything that we were asking him to do, and he would go to the gym at night on his own and continue and lift again. I mean, that guy was just has a motor. I think Emmett Laws is one that's going to be a breakout.
That's who somebody wanted me to ask you.
Yeah, he's going to have a great year. He really jumped on the scene. What's funny is, people watch the games and they don't really understand what's going on. Against South Carolina, he had the big sack for a safety, and he made some plays, but he had to learn that he had to do his job a little bit better. So, and once again, everybody wants that instant reward, and so he had to work, and he to his credit, he does. He's a hardworking guy, and I think he's going to have a great season. And his work ethic, his toughness, and he's a junkie. He likes football a lot.
Now, he's the one who went to DeMatha and got on the train every day at 5 a.m., that whole story?
Yeah. Tell me about your character without having to tell me about your character. That guy.
Show me your train schedule, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I was immediately drawn to him because of that. And not to mention he was a good football player. And I've never been a cookie cutter coach where every D lineman's got to be a certain size, a certain height. The only two things that I'm really looking for in a D lineman is length, and then, mentality. Do you have the mentality because you got to go in there and fight every day. You got to have that kind of a toughness and grit to yourself. And he has all that for sure.
Do you have somebody else wanted me to ask you the question? When you're watching film, this is kind of a narrow question. Maybe you'll answer it a different way. What 3 traits do you look for? Do you evaluate players?
Well, that's I always say, you show me the guy at the best get off, I'll show you the best player. So we're looking at the explosion off the ball. Can they change direction? And do they have length? So I'm talking about their arm length. Do they have the ability to get off blocks, and do they play hard and all those type of things? But there's got to be a certain level of ability that has got to jump off the film, and when you watch enough film, you can tell. Like I always say that my daughter should be able to put your film on, and you're like, that's a D1 player. That guy, that's what they're supposed to look like.
Yeah. So let's see. Here's kind of a long question. With all these NFL style corporate and so the person, I'll actually read the whole thing. JC, you and Jenny are both alums, so you knew better than most that Blacksburg isn't just a stop on the map for us. Talking about Hokie fans. Mm-hmm. With all these NFL-style corporate changes and the massive budget shifts you see in 2026, you think it's still possible for a kid to come to Tech today and feel that same family vibe you had back in 1995? Or is the portal and the money just moving things in a different direction now?
I think it's definitely moving things in a different direction. And if you're not careful, I think that things can start becoming transactional, instead of relationship based. But I don't think it's going to happen at Blacksburg. I don't know Coach Franklin great. I know him a little bit. I think with all the things that I've seen Tech doing since I've not been there, as far as taking the players out to eat, and I think you just have to work harder at it now. I think it became easier. It was easier to have those type of relationships back in '95 when there wasn't social media, when there wasn't a bunch of money, when there wasn't the portal. People weren't leaving. I can't sit here and tell you that if somebody offered me $100,000, $200,000, I would have transferred. I might have to think about it. I probably would have done it, but that wasn't an option back then. So you never thought about leaving. Like there's not once that I ever think about whether it was 2-8-1 year, my first year, or at no point did I ever think about transferring. That never entered my mind. And now it's just a different world. So I think you have to be more intentional about the relationship as a coach. So the coaches here at Tech will have to work harder at it than they would have had to work at it in '95, and that's probably the difference.
Yeah. So it's interesting in this thread on the message board where I ask people to ask you questions. Mm-hmm. There are multiple posts in here that just say, I'll read one for you. not an ask. I don't have a question for him. Just tell him best wishes. He's a true Hokie and will be missed. So
yeah,
let's wrap it up with your thoughts on that, on what Virginia Tech means to you. And you made it here, but now you have to go.
Yeah, well, it's surreal a bit, and I mean, everything that I have in my life, Tech has afforded me that opportunity. Tech has given me a chance to make choices in my life and allowed me to do what I wanted to do. My degree from Tech allowed me to be a football coach. I didn't have to go out and do something that I don't want to do. I got a chance to choose what I wanted to do, and this will always be home. I mean, it gave me a football career. It gave me a chance to play in the NFL. It
gave you a wife.
It gave me my wife. My daughter went here. I mean, this place is always it's always going to be home. Where I'm going to be 5 years, I don't know. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years, but Tech will always be my home, and it always hold a special place. And no matter where I am, no matter how a situation evolves, it's always going to be go Hokies.
Andy, you got anything else?
Oh, that's a good way to end it.
JC, appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate you guys
best of
having me.
luck at ETSU.
Yeah, we're gonna get that thing. They were close last year, and so we got to finish some games up there and go win a championship.
All right. Good luck and thanks a lot.
Appreciate you guys.
Folks, that's it for episode 476, if I'm remembering the number correctly, of the Tech Sideline Podcast. Nick says thumbs up. Brought to you by Tech Solutions. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.